Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Company Next Door. This is Ete. This is our first episode recording, I should say live, but there will be some editing, so don't worry about that. Recording here at Archie's Underground here in Heber. Where we've got Jeff Kohler here. This is his studio, and I've interviewed him a few episodes back, so make sure to check that out. And so we're going to try to do some video today, so hopefully everything looks somewhat okay. Hopefully got my makeup done up and we're looking good. Today I want to introduce my guest. We met I feel like I say that about everybody. We met about 8 years ago, but I think it's somewhere around there. I lived in Midway in her neighborhood-ish, somewhere in her area, and me and her husband, we became good friends, and just a great family. And so I'm here with Tanji Wolfert. Tanji, say hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
I'm honored to be
Thank
here.
you for coming in, and she's our first, on camera, so we're a little bit nervous trying to get the setup. So Tanji has a really cool family. Her husband travels, he flies planes, he's gone, he's all over the place. But she's done a lot of great work in the mental health space, working with addiction, working with mindfulness. And she's built a company here in Heber. It's been in business about a year, somewhere in there. Yeah. And that's what we'll talk about. But Tanji, I want to start with this question. A lot of people, mindfulness in the last 8 to 10 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, is gaining some legitimacy. Like, people are starting to recognize it as this is a legitimate, useful, holistic practice.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it always was. You could say the word mindfulness years ago, people, what is that? How is it here in Heber? Are you finding resistance to it? Are people valuing and understanding the service that you're offering?
Yeah, I haven't really experienced resistance. I've heard of that coming up in other communities, but here people have been really open-minded and for the most part embraced what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you tell us what is your definition of mindfulness for those who they're going, what the heck are they talking about?
Yeah, so there's a formal definition that I use through the program I've been trained in. Jon Kabat-Zinn says mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention to the present moment on purpose and non-judgmentally.
Okay.
But what I like to point out is that mindfulness is awareness.
Okay.
And that's really what we're going for. So especially in like formal meditations, a lot of people think there's some goal like to be peaceful or have no thought. And really what we're going for is awareness. And so I really emphasize.
So it's not so much this piece Zen, no thought, but it's actually the opposite. It's
having
so much thought that you are mindful of yourself in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. And I know you do work also with helping people with stress. Is it?
Yeah. So the program I'm trained in is mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Okay.
And it's through the University of Massachusetts Medical School.
Okay.
Like I said, Jon Kabat-Zinn developed it back in the 80s. And that's about the time it came to research. So all the research that's being done on mindfulness is from this 8-week program. That's a really specific curriculum.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think, and we'll come back to that. We'll come back and talk about what you're doing. But I think this is something that everybody in this Heber Valley could benefit from, especially in 2020 with the COVID, with all the chaos that the world brings. Mm-hmm. Some stress reduction, some mindfulness, it can change your life.
Yeah.
So let's back up quite a bit and talk about where did you come from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, where did I grow up?
Yeah.
I grew up in Sandy, so not too far. Yeah, and so that's kind of where my story begins. My mom passed away suddenly when I was 11.
Okay.
I was the oldest of 3 children, and my life changed in that moment, really. And not knowing this then, but realizing kind of, as was expected, it was a very tragic thing that happened. All the adults in my life seemed to be falling apart. And so in my little 11-year-old mind, I thought, I got this kind of my mantra or my goal or, my philosophy was I just have to be strong. I have to be the strong one.
Push through it, just power through it.
Everything.
Because I'm an 11-year-old and I've really experienced a lot, but I'm going to power through it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the way I lived my life, and like with, my kids and my husband. And then I got to my mid-30s and I was like, I I have to find a different way. This isn't working. Because what it would look like was me pushing through, and I would just get this feeling of, I didn't know what it was, like depression, but really it was my stress catching up with me.
Yeah.
And it would be a couple days like where I was really dysfunctional. I could hardly do anything. And then I would, kind of regroup and be able to get going again. It was just that pattern over and over, very exhausting. And so what happened was in my mid-30s when I was searching for something different, I found a book called You Can Feel Good Again.
Okay.
And it's not a mindfulness book. It's actually a book on depression, but it's mostly about how our thoughts aren't real. And it got me really curious about my
Love that
mind.
topic, yeah.
I mean, it was just life-changing. It was like,
Sure.
what is real if my thoughts aren't real, and I just looked at everything differently. And so it was really a self-study. There wasn't a lot of, so first of all, I started hearing this word mindfulness coming up
In your 30s?
about the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was, the research was, really coming forward. You were hearing this word a lot more. And so I got curious about what is mindfulness, what does it mean, and did a lot of just reading books, online guided meditations, and I've just been passionate about it from the beginning. It's been something that's been a really integral part of my life.
So you're the oldest of three, 11 years old, and Sandy, your mom passes away.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, okay, I've got to just rise up and step in, fill mom's shoes, so to speak, in some ways.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was that a little bit like going through your teenage years? I mean, that doesn't sound easy.
That's a great question. It was really difficult. I was on the drill team. Everyone else had their moms showing up to the competitions, really supportive.
Yeah.
I didn't. I bought my own car when I was 16. I did a lot of caretaking of younger siblings. And my teenage years weren't the normal, like, self-centered, like, about me. It was more about others.
Everybody else taking care of.
And so it was, that was really, really challenging time. And that's one of the stories I like to tell when I work with youth. I've done a lot of volunteer time in the schools here, and I love telling them my story and just how, we don't have to believe everything we think. That's a big part of mindfulness. And my thoughts at that time as an adolescent were, I'm not as worthy as other people because and I wasn't smart. Yeah, I had a really hard time in school and graduating from high school. I barely graduated high school. And so it was, I thought I was dumb for a long time. Wow. And so really challenging those beliefs, and it's really exciting and powerful to bring that to adolescents and help them challenge those kind of beliefs and thoughts about themselves.
So let's stay there for a second. What do you say? What is your message to these young kids today's youth deal with so much stuff.
Yeah.
The suicide rate in Utah is out the roof. It
Exactly.
drives me nuts. There's not enough time to help everyone. It's heartbreaking. What is the message you say? Because to these kids that are going through this and just pushing through it. I gotta whatever. Everybody hates me. I'm getting bullied at school. I'll just push through it. I'll tough through it.
I know, exactly. Yeah, don't believe everything you think is a big message. I'll tell them. And there's a lot of different ways to bring mindfulness awareness of our mind and our thoughts without taking them really seriously and personally, knowing this is what the mind does. We create stories, especially about ourselves. A lot of them aren't helpful, really identifying those. And that internal weather pattern of emotions that are constantly ebbing and flowing. And actually teens catch on quicker than adults to mindfulness. It's really exciting. The methods are completely different. Teaching adults and teens, I've been trained in a couple different teen programs as well. And so I love working with them. And the things that they say when I'm teaching them are just so profound.
Wow.
They really, naturally, their brain is developing. And so it's just a really good time to learn these concepts.
Awesome. So you're growing up, you're going through your family in Sandy. Let's talk about how you ended up in Heber. And so take me from, I hear you go through a teenage. What happened? Did you go to school for mindfulness?
No.
Did you go to college for mindfulness?
Yeah, good question. So I tried a semester of college, and I didn't feel like it was for me. And I went, ended up having a family and wanted to go back to school, kind of supported my husband through his flying career, things like that. So as soon as my youngest started school, I went back to school. And was kind of surprised to find out I wasn't dumb. I was smart. I mean,
I can relate.
Yeah.
I got put in a box as a kid in Jersey. They labeled me really quick in the
Right.
bad dumb kid box, and so same thing. I remember being in my 20s and I'm just devouring books. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not an idiot. Like I'm actually kind of smart. So
Wow.
I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so meaningful because we create these stories these
in our head.
ideas when we're young. And so challenging them, so that was a lot of my experience, was challenging that. And I remember being both like elated and really kind of mourning or having a lot of grief for all the years that I believed those things
Same
about
here.
myself.
I almost went through a process where I was almost a little angry. Like, wow, these people just
Yeah.
let me believe this, and I accept it.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 6.
6. That's right. I didn't want to guess. I was thinking 5, somewhere 5 to 7. You have 6 kids, and how many of them are at home, and where are they all over? Or
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle, transitioning. We have 3 that are grown and married, and we have 4 grandchildren.
Okay.
One son that just graduated from high school and is leaving home, and then 2 teenage boys at home.
Wow. So you've got 6 kids at home and grandkids, and you decide to get into business.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's not enough. You didn't have enough stress at home.
Yeah.
It wasn't crazy enough. Actually, let me back up because I kind of jumped. My question processor all over the place. So you went to a little bit of college and you found out it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
What did you do?
And so I really, like I said, focused on my husband's career and getting him through school.
Gotcha.
And all that, becoming a pilot, especially he didn't do the military route. So there was a lot of years of sacrificing for that. We did move all over. We lived in Alaska, the Philippines,
Wow.
California, and then ended up in Midway. And so it was a lot focused on just family, raising kids. That's what I needed to do.
Just
really.
diapers and school.
Yeah.
Then you're a driver.
Yeah.
So why you're in Alaska? You're all over the country and the world. It sounds like. Why did you guys come back to Heber? What made this? Or I should say, come to Heber because you didn't say you've been in Heber yet.
Yeah.
Or Midway.
So
sorry.
my husband grew up vacationing here, and his parents always had property here, and so it was his dream to live here. He loved Midway. We never thought we'd end up in Utah, but when he got offered an upgrade to captain with SkyWest, for some reason the only option was to Salt Lake as his domicile, so we ended up coming to Midway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because that was his dream. So.
Okay. And then so I know just from knowing you that you did some work, and you still do some local work at the Chateau.
Yeah.
And you've been in and out there, so you're working with the mental health, you're working with addiction, which that's an amazing work, and we need more of it. Tell us a little about what that's like, working in that space and the ups and downs of that.
Yeah, I love it there. I was a counselor full-time there, and I did a lot more like clinical work on the clinical team. Now I just kind of go in, do mindfulness groups, my group therapy centered on mindfulness teachings, and a little bit of individual therapy as well. And so we have a lot of like trauma there. So I am trained in trauma-informed mindfulness, things like that. Yeah. Wow.
Is it ever hard in that capacity, just because you see where some people are and they may not be trying, or not, let me rephrase that, they may be frustrated or almost giving up, and you're there trying to work and guide them through that.
Yeah.
You can't always have success because it's up to the individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Do you bring that home? Do you sit with that? How do you? I've always wondered that with any therapist. How do you handle all that? How do you not take it in?
Well, and when I went so I'm a substance use disorder counselor, and actually had an experience in my internship where I had someone that I was quite close to, and was just reminded me of, could have been one of my sons, really.
Gotcha.
And he ended up committing suicide while I was there, and it was really difficult. But the thought that came to me was, these things are happening anyway, whether I'm helping or not, and I can only hopefully help, with what's going on.
Do something about it.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that's all set the way and paved the way for what you're doing today. Why did you decide, with 6 kids, 4 grandkids, I think you said, and, your husband's out flying, why did you start this company a year and a half ago?
Yeah, so when I was a counselor at Chateau, I had my own mindfulness practice, personal mindfulness practice. I really wanted to bring mindfulness, I knew it could help my clients. And that's when I started researching how to become a teacher and what the best programs were. So the program I'm trained in is for healthcare and society. It's actually used in medical settings, schools, and things like that. So it's more mindfulness for mental health than more like there's mindfulness that are more like yoga practices.
Sure.
So I went and did the trainings for that, took a break from counseling, and it really kind of took off. The mindfulness, I'm in high demand, and the jobs started opening up, and just am doing something I'm really passionate about and that I love doing, and I'm able to bring it to that population that I was already working with, that I kind of inspired me to go into teaching mindfulness, as well as other, I get asked by schools a lot to work with teachers to teach them to be mindful or to manage their stress in a mindful way. And so it's been a great journey. So the company I have here is more focused on the individual work, people that can't or don't want to take the 8-week course, and maybe they don't have time or they don't want to be in a group setting. And so I do some of the individual work here. I have an office, and then I also do some online classes.
So you mentioned the initial idea behind this was you were 11 years old, you lost your mom, and anytime you'd have stress or these things, it was just this idea of push, just get through it. That's a very common belief through our culture.
Yep.
I have a lot of friends in my life that just think, I got to tough it out. And did mindfulness help you shift that? Like, obviously, you're teaching it, and so I imagine, I'm hoping you apply it.
Yeah.
What does it look like now? Can you tell us a little bit about when something comes up that is difficult?
Yeah.
What's changed for you?
First of all, let me say about living it, the thing that I love about teaching this is you really can't teach it unless you're living it. Okay. And so that it kind of brings more of a challenge to my own practice. And what you were saying, now I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
How did it change your life? Because you had you carried. You carried all that. I have to figure this out, and then how'd you let go? How did you move past it?
How I would sum up the biggest difference and the biggest impact it's made on my life is I really was running from anything negative or any negative emotions, and it was just like this big monster. It was like, no, I can't feel you. I don't have time for you. Yeah. I'm too busy.
Block it out.
Yeah, until it was too much, and it would always catch up with me. In mindfulness, it's really about holding what's here, exactly what's here, like being with what's here. And I would say that, and there's so much power in just that awareness that I talked about with the definition of mindfulness in and of itself. And then when you're actually here and you understand what's going on in our beautiful minds and hearts, then we can start working with what's here. Yeah.
So an example, let's say we got a teenager, and they're having this thought that might say, I'm not good enough.
Right.
This core belief inside them, I'm just not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I don't have value. So you're suggesting, instead of them, sometimes as kids we're trained to put that on a shelf and just do good things and block it out, right? Ignore it, and it'll get smaller. And as I act and do good things, that'll grow. But you're saying it's the opposite. We need to dive into that thought. What?
Yeah.
Help me out with that example. Yeah.
So our mind is pretty powerful. So we're more like working with our mind than battling against it. Okay. So like you're saying, put it on a shelf. Maybe if you're identifying that as a thought, and you're saying, like we're saying, don't believe everything you think. Okay, I have this thought, I'm not good enough. Here's this thought. That's exactly what it is, a thought.
So it's not a truth, it's a thought.
Yeah, okay. It's a thought that I've developed for whatever reason. And then, that there's a lot of softening there, and a lot of an awareness and a little bit of space. Like I see you, I see what you're doing, but I don't have to believe you. And the reason why that's so important is, if you look at research, you can say, like, whatever you do, don't think of a pink elephant.
Now I'm thinking, right? I can see it.
Never have negative thoughts, right? And so,
which we can be told that as kids. Yeah.
But we're identifying it as a thought, and kind of losing the attachment to it, softening around it, learning how to let go.
Okay.
And let it pass as a thought instead of either running from it, which usually ends up making it build a little more, or believing it.
Huh. Gotcha. I love it. It's a whole different, I think for a lot of people, that's a whole different way to think.
It's different.
So when people come to you at first and they are coming from that way of, oh, that's an ugly thought, that doesn't, let's hide that. Your first thing is just to kind of say, let's bring it into the light.
Yeah.
Let's recognize it exists, but it's not you. It's not the truth.
Yeah, it's really challenging to wrap our minds around that because our culture is so different. But I would say it's the most powerful part of the practice is really being with what's here in awareness. And then we can start working with what's here and changing things.
So, I mean, you sound a lot like a therapist to me. Like a cognitive behavioral therapist. Yeah. Is there a big difference there? How do I know mindfulness therapy, or are they all connected?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I am a counselor for addiction at Chateau, so I'm licensed as a counselor there. Mindfulness is a little bit different. It's more of a skill that you're building. So I see myself more as a teacher or an instructor, an advisor, a coach, something like that, where I'm helping them build their own mindfulness skills. Okay.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how long, if you get a new client, how long is the process? So let's say someone's listening, or I want to say, hey, I want to be more mindful. Yeah. Am I with you once a week forever? Is there an amount of limit? How do you work through that?
So if they wanted to take the 8-week course, that would be 8 weeks,
Would they come into your office?
Setting. No, that would be a group setting. And I do have one on Zoom or at the hospital in Provo. Okay. That's open to the community. Individually, it's really varies. And some people I'll work with for weeks and months, and they have a lot of stuff to work on individually. Some people come in a few times, and then I won't hear from them for a while, and then they'll call back, as things get, as they face different challenges or. Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's just kind of custom.
Yeah.
Do you work with a local, like the hospital, or like does this practice go hand in hand with some of the medical out there, some of the doctors, and do they recommend people to you, or?
The 8-week course, I get a lot of doctors recommending for the 8-week course. That is it's a world recognized as a medical intervention worldwide. And so I will get physicians and therapists recommending for that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that gives us a good understanding of what you're doing and how you're helping the community. So you didn't go to business school.
No.
And you decided to start a business. How's that process been? Has that just been, there's so much to learn in a business, from taxes, corporations, pay, whatever. How's that process?
I'm still learning, especially the organization part of it. When we did taxes this year, I learned a lot of things I need to do differently. And I think the biggest thing is just getting the word out. I believe in word of mouth more than anything. Yeah. This community networking. So I really appreciate you doing this and hearing about this and the work that you're doing. And I also belong to Wasatch Women's Wellness Network, and we do a lot of networking there too. Yeah.
Gotcha. So more of the marketing and just getting the word out there has been a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
What have been some of the hardest moments of I guess the last year and a half since you started the business? Has there been a low point where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to do this?
Mm-hmm. There's been, I'll talk about what, I've really tried to get mindfulness into the schools here, into the secondary schools. It's been a lot of volunteer time and training and things like that. And we did get kind of a pilot program of MBSR, which is the 8-week course for the teachers, going this year. And then COVID happened right in the middle of it. But we actually transitioned right to Zoom. It went beautifully. It was amazing, the rest of the course. But I don't know. I think, we're not sure how to proceed for fall. There's so much unknown and uncertainty. Yeah. I think that would be, I'd have to say that as the biggest challenge. And it's, even though we are focusing on the business part, I don't really see this as maybe a business, but just kind of a passion of mine, especially to bring to our community. So I teach a lot. I teach with Alpine School District, San Pete School District, Provo Hospital, but my passion really is to bring this to our community. And so
right here in our backyard.
and so that's been probably the biggest challenge, and just having some setbacks there. But having confidence moving forward. I do have a children's workshop that I'm starting in July, which I've taught before and I love. And so I'm excited to do that. And it's mostly people from our community that have signed up so far.
That's awesome. So do you hope to, in the next few years, what's your vision for Kind Wise Mind as far as, is it, do you hope to just keep it as is, just you being is a practitioner? I'm not sure the right word. The teacher?
Instructor.
Instructor. Or do you hope to are you looking to bring in more instructors and scale it out? Or where's your business mind? Yeah, what do you want to get at? What do you want to do?
So as far as the business, I don't really see like hiring anyone. I think it's just pretty much me.
Cool.
But I think there are other people interested in teaching mindfulness. I'm the only one in this county, and then I think there's one in Utah County.
Wow.
And I have to turn down, being able to teach, and so I would love to see that grow just as independent people, but yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's great. What's been some of the highlights of your career in this field, working with anything from mental health to mindfulness to addiction? What's been something is there a time, and obviously no names are specific, but was there been a time just like, this is awesome, this was actually worth it? Because a lot of business, you get up every day, you work your tail off, and nobody cares, they don't appreciate you. And then once in a while, you get these little like moments where it's like being a dad or a mom. Yeah. It's like you work your tail off for these kids. My baby, she's 2 years old. She's still in my bed and she doesn't even sleep. And sometimes I'm like, man, but then there's just that little smile or, something. Exactly. I'm like, do it again.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't expect that I love about my teaching, a couple of things. The 8-week course is, I love teaching it, and seeing people go through that 8 weeks all together and coming out at the end of that loving mindfulness as much as I do.
That's cool.
And seeing the life-changing aspects of that. Having people, especially young people, like I have a lot of college students that sign up for that course in BYU, and from BYU and UVU in Provo. And a lot of the times they will say at the end of the course, like, I'm okay being with me. Like, I can be in my apartment and not turn on the radio, no one's home, I can cook a meal, and I'm just at ease being by myself. I'm not on my phone, I'm not.
That's powerful.
And so that's probably one of the most rewarding things, is to hear stories like that.
Okay, so how's it? So you're about a year-ish plus into the business. How's your husband like it? Is it how's the family like it? Are they like, Mom, just go to work? Or are they like, Mom, why are you always gone? Or what's it like? Tell me about balancing the dynamic between a mother of 6, obviously some are gone, and a wife, and the good you do in the community, and then a business owner. Yeah.
I think you'd have to ask him, but I mean,
Dave, call in.
I think that there is a balance. I really, I think he knows I need something, especially as the kids are leaving home, something that inspires me. He's been so supportive of all the training I've done, of all the time it takes away, and so he's really. I could not have done any of this without him, and so very supportive. I only teach 1 night a week. I'm pretty limited on how many nights I teach. Okay. So it's more days. So he's found a lot of like golfing buddies. He knows like a lot of most of the retired people in our community. He's like hanging out with them,
playing pickleball. The old people with the courts. Yeah, I seen them line up.
And
all
golf.
Those people.
So but
that's awesome.
It's been a little bit of a challenge, but good too. Yeah.
What's the one thing that you've learned that you would share just in the last year on the business side of being someone who didn't have a background in business and I'm going to start a company? What's something you'd share to someone that's thinking, I have an idea, I might start a company?
Oh my gosh, yeah, just follow your heart, your passions. I mean, there's been so many setbacks over the last 5 years in this process, and just a lot of times that I gave up. And so, but now as I see the progress, as I see things I've been able to accomplish that I really wanted to, I'm so glad that I pushed through. I got up again and kept going, trusted myself. And if you have something you're passionate about, I think over the last year, especially since I opened Kind Wise Mind, just seeing the confidence that I've built,
Yeah.
in myself.
In yourself.
It's so rewarding and like empowering to do something like this, especially if it's your passion. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So here's 2 name questions. One, because I know a lot of people will, and we're going to put a link to your company website in the notes, but your name Tanji.
Yeah.
We got to ask you about that, because some people will say, "What? I've never heard that name."
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
I think my mom, like she passed away when I was little, but from what I understand, she really liked unusual names. And so I think she just heard it and liked it and named me Tanji. And yeah.
And you kept it?
Yeah.
And then Why Kind, Wise Mind, which I think is a great name. And there's a period in between each, right? Or no?
No.
Okay, so
just Kind, Wise Mind.
Yeah, where'd you come up with that?
It's just so fitting. Our mind is the way we experience the world. And the results of mindfulness is more kindness, especially to ourselves, and more wisdom in trusting ourselves more. And so to me, that's just a really simple way of putting what I do and what I'm offering to the community.
Kind, Wise Mind.
Kind, Wise Mind.
That's what you're offering. Awesome. Here's my last question is what do you like to do for fun if it's a nice Saturday? I always say Saturday in July, and I know everyone here says, "Well, is it February or July?" Because what seasonal. But what do you like to do on your days off? No work, no weeding the garden, unless that's what you love to do.
Right. No, I don't.
Where are we gonna find? I don't either. Where are we gonna find you? What are you doing?
There's a trail up by my house. I love hiking that trail.
Yeah.
Aspen groves, pine trees. I try to do it every week. And that is part of my mindfulness practice, is just like really being in nature. And I usually do it alone. If I'm with my family, we love to go boating, to go out on the lake, go paddleboarding.
Yeah.
We're going to Lake Powell next month. So,
oh, jealous. I love it. It's so fun down there.
Yeah. So just. Yeah.
So you're out hiking.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure where to look because, like I said, it's new. I'm going to look this way, you guys, if you're watching, because this is all new. But I'm here with Tanji Wolfert. Kind, Wise Mind is her company. I just really think it's a service that we need here. I think, I feel like we need a lot more kindness, not just to our neighbors, but to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like we always overlook it, and especially if you have been told as a kid, "Oh, just fight off the negative with a positive." I love this idea of what she's teaching of no, bring it out. Let's go through it. Let's experience it, and move past it.
Yeah.
As you were able to, as much as you can with, losing your mother and all the feelings that come with that. And so I'm really excited about it. If anyone's from the schools are watching, let's get her in there. Let's get the kids to hear this message. I think it's crazy out there, and the suicide rate drives me nuts, and I want to do more about it. So I would love to see you in all the schools just teaching this, and we can help change the mindset there. So anyway, so Kind Wise Mind, we'll put a link to the website. Appreciate you guys for checking out this episode. Tanji, thank you for coming by.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, really. It's great work you're doing.
Wow, it's good to have you, and I appreciate all the service that you're building in the community. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of The Company Next Door.